Mike DeWine takes on teachers and the battle to love Donald Trump the most. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Joe Mas from the Ohio Hispanic Coalition, and Terry Casey, Republican strategist. All but 12% of Ohio's schools are teaching some of their students in person. But for Governor DeWine, that is not good enough because he has allowed teachers and school workers to get their COVID vaccines ahead of other groups. Columbus is among the school districts the governor has called out because its middle and high school students are still learning remotely.
They need to get back in school academically. They need to get back in school emotionally, socially. And we felt that it was worth it, tough call, but worth it to get these kids back in school, to go ahead and say, yes, we're going to vaccinate your employees, we're going to vaccinate your teachers, anybody else in your school who wants the vaccine. But the deal is you need to be back in full force March 1.
March 1st, that's the date the governor says school leaders agreed to return to some form of in-person learning in exchange for the early vaccines. School and union leaders say the governor is unfairly picking a fight with teachers who want to be back in the classroom so long as other safety conditions are met as well.
Over 86% of teachers across the state are already providing in-person instruction in our schools. We know that there is no substitute for the kind of connection and support that exist between educators and classrooms in our school buildings, but conditions have to be safe. We've been consistent about that. The bar has not changed on that, but sometimes the governor chooses to kind of, change what his standard is when it comes to that.
Joe Ingles, what's going on here? The governor says he wants teachers back in the classroom with students. The school unions say they want to be back in the classroom with students as well. Where's the divide? Where are they not meeting up?
Well, the agreement that was signed between the school districts and the governor's office was that they would be back in by March 1st, and that they would either be hybrid or, not there every day, but there some of the time, or they'd be there all of the time. There were not details in that agreement as to what the state would do otherwise, other than provide a vaccine. There's no money to go out and do any kind of refabrication of schools, buildings, and that sort of thing, which the schools are saying, that the schools that are kind of holding out are saying we've got a problem and that we don't have enough space. It's not safe here. We don't feel like we can do this safely. The other side, the governor and people will say, look, we've got studies that show that the transmission in the classroom, if people are wearing masks, if everyone's wearing a mask, the transmission in classrooms, that's not high. That when there is transmission in school, that it's from other things other than classrooms. There also is a substitute teacher shortage in some of these schools. That's a problem. There's the buses. What do you do with these kids on the buses? And in some places, they don't have enough bus drivers. So there's a lot that goes into this, but the governor is saying a deal is a deal. We gave you the COVID shots. You signed the paper. Now you come back in some form or fashion by March 1st.
Joe Mas, are the teachers asking too much here? I mean, it's going to be hard to have students 6 feet apart, so maybe they have to be 3 or 4 feet apart. But as long as they're wearing masks, as Joe mentioned, the studies show that transmission rate in the school buildings, especially from student to teacher, is very, very low.
Mike, is depending on who you ask, and as it often is, the devil is in the details. So that you have some reasonable understanding of this, as in the case of the superintendent from Akron, that is saying this is a no-brainer. We inoculate everybody. After the second shot, we have the 2-week period in order for antibodies to develop, and then we'll go back. But that's not necessarily what the governor is thinking about, and that's not necessarily what some of the scientists are saying, which Joe actually alluded to just a second ago, that even without the shots, if you maintain some sort of distancing, and it's not necessarily 6 feet, it could be 5, it could be as short as 3, and with the masks, if people are disciplined with that you have about the same results. So I think that the problem here is that the governor identified a target date, but not necessarily how to get there. And I think everybody had a slightly different idea. Now, there are some other infrastructure issues. And again, Joe mentioned about the busing and all of that. That will continue to be a problem.
Terry Casey, less than, I think 12%, that's all, 12% of Ohio school districts right now are completely remote. Back in the beginning of January, 6 weeks ago, it was about half of Ohio school districts were completely remote. So we are making great progress, and the governor says we are. Is he prematurely picking a fight with teachers here? We still have a little ways before March 1st. Teachers are still getting vaccinated. Is he jumping the gun in going after school districts and teachers here?
He's just letting know the districts that when they come up with phony excuses or weak excuses, it isn't good enough. If you're a property owner, like I am in the Columbus School District, they didn't give me and say, oh, paying your taxes by the end of the January, it doesn't matter, just pay them whenever you can. They had a deadline, we had to meet the deadline. And the fact that most of the districts throughout Ohio are able to meet this, knew it was coming for months and months and did it, it raises questions, what's wrong with Columbus? And by the way, the Columbus Public Schools have over $1 billion budget, have received millions in CARES Act money to do a lot of these things. So it's not the money, it's just a question of their management and their leadership. When most districts can do it, why can't they do it in Columbus? That's the big question that Columbus taxpayers and parents ought to be asking, not just the governor.
So Terry, the governor's not deflecting the bad news about the fraud in the unemployment system, the unaccounted for 4,000 deaths, the slow rollout of the vaccine. He's not trying to get us to look over here.
Well, there's a lot of issues, but again, the big question is in Ohio, with 600 and some districts, why have virtually all of them been able to do it, but a handful of districts, including Columbus? And Columbus, I mean, if you are a student and you tell the teacher, the dog ate my homework, the teacher's not very sympathetic. The question is, how sympathetic and flexible should the governor be? And we're going to see, they're kind of hinting that maybe by mid-March, they'll meet the deadline, but they've known this is coming for months and months and months, and they got priority on the vaccine. So it's time for the Columbus schools to actually do what they promised and not come up with more excuses and basically recycling old ones, because all these other districts have busing challenges and substitute teacher challenges. So it's nothing new or unique in Columbus compared to most of the state.
Joe Mas, I think a lot of parents, came to appreciate the hard work that teachers do day in and day out, starting last spring when they were forced to help teach their kids at home. Do teachers run the risk of losing some of that goodwill by seeming to drag their feet and wanting to get back into the classroom? I'm talking about union heads now, maybe not just every teacher, but union heads.
I think if it's presented as them dragging their feet, then of course that would be it. And my good friend Terry, I think, suggests that perhaps that's what's happening. I have a different view on that. I think that there are a lot of moving parts. There is an element to this that we haven't addressed, and that is that the larger and more urban districts, such as Columbus, such as Cincinnati, and maybe some of the not so large cities, I think have additional burdens that perhaps less populated counties might not have. I also think it's not necessarily clear that all of the personnel have gotten the inoculations. Just recently, I visited one of the sites, and there were a lot of young people there, educators, that were getting their first shot. So they're running behind as far as that's concerned, and that critical piece is not necessarily in place. That's why I mentioned about the science, perhaps addressing it another way through mask wearing rather than just the vaccine.
Yeah, everyone says wearing a mask in school is the best way to prevent the spread, and there's studies that have shown that is the case in schools. In other COVID-19 news, cases and hospitalizations continue to decline, but vaccine distribution continues its slow trek. The state's promised website to allow people to register for a vaccine at one place is not ready yet. The original target date was Valentine's Day, but the site is still weeks away. The governor's office says the state still needs to recruit hospitals, drugstores, and health departments to participate. Joe Mas, you recently got your vaccine. How hard was it to get the appointment to get your shot?
It was the hardest part was waiting, hoping that I'd be, of course, the next in line. In my particular case, it happened very easily. I was in Florida, hoping to be able to jump the line and take advantage of their system, which promised to inoculate visitors. But that did not come to pass. As a matter of fact, that was a little clunky, and they shut it off about 2 weeks into my stay there. So a couple of days later, I get a call from the Ohio State University Medical System, where I'm a patient, asking me to check out their website and enter my data. And I did, and within a day or two, I had my appointment.
Wow.
And so I got my inoculation about 2 weeks ago.
And you went to the shot, the big, I think I saw on your Facebook page. You went to
Mine was the Moderna shot.
Yes.
That's correct.
And you went to you got your shot at the shot.
At the shot.
Shot
At the
Steam Center.
shot. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And they had a wonderful system, very well designed, very painless. I was in and out with waiting periods and everything exactly 1 hour after arriving at the door.
Joe Ingles, what is the latest from the Dwight administration, from the state, as to how the vaccine distribution is going? It seems to have picked up a little bit. The pace has, as more vaccine becomes available. But this website is still, which would make things easier, I think, for a lot of people, is still sort of behind a bit.
Yeah, and the problem is that, when the state set up, they didn't have a website that could schedule. They couldn't take the federal one that allowed people to go online and schedule on the website. They needed to have one built for them. So the one that they have built now, they're waiting for all the providers to get on board and get them to put in their scheduling system so they can connect. And some of the providers are saying, hey, we're not sure we can do that. The new providers that are coming on board as we get more vaccine are going to be required to do that. And we know that the governor has said there will be some mass vaccination sites, some more of those kind of things coming on board as we get more vaccine, and that they will be connected as well. One of the things, though, that I think we have seen that has happened that probably needs to be addressed is what happens to these leftover shots. In all of these locations, they have to use the vaccine by the end of the day when they have these shot clinics. And sometimes we see people who are getting vaccinated who are not in the 1A or 1B group. They're much younger, much healthier. And meanwhile, we have 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds who cannot get in to get vaccinated. And so that's something that the state is going to have to deal with as they get this program up and running.
Terry Casey, are you hanging out at the clinics hoping to get the leftover shots? Have you already gotten yours through the regular channels?
I've got the first one, and the end of this month we'll get the second one. And the good news, and this is not an April Fool's joke, but by the time we get to April, when Johnson & Johnson's approved and production continues to ramp up, I think we're going to be in much better shape in that month. But it takes time, and it's all about the supply. This idea of we'll have these big NFL sports stadiums and that'll solve all the problem. The problem is all about supply. It's not about getting sites. And I really think that by the time we get to April, we're going to be in much better shape. Now, the bad news, an early prediction, is by this fall, we're going to discover that we're going to have a booster shot produced to deal with some of the variations. So some of the anxiety we're having now is going to come back this fall. But again, we're making progress with the vaccine. And there was a major article this week. There's debate about it, but whether we're creating, because so many people have had COVID, reported or not reported, plus the vaccines, that we're creating a bit of a herd immunity. It's not here totally, but at least we're getting closer to it.
Yeah, all good news. Joe Mas, are you confident that, more vulnerable populations, people of color, low-income folks are getting an equal shot at this, no pun intended?
No, they're lagging behind. And the main reason is that usually vulnerable populations, by virtue of their definition, do not have the infrastructure in their lives to be able to be set up. They don't have somebody from, as in my case, from OSU Medical giving you a call saying that you can apply. They may not even have a family doctor. They may not have even sought any medical treatment for many months or many years. So that's where the hole is. And quite frankly, right now, I'm not seeing the system ramped up to get that done.
Joe Ingles, what is the governor saying about that? There was talk about having more outreach to lower income neighborhoods, minority populations, and they talked about what they're trying to do to get more people vaccinated in those groups.
Yes, they're going to use the churches in a lot of these neighborhoods. The church is kind of the social center. They're going to use the churches to help reach out to some people. They're also doing some things through the Department of Aging with some of the older folks, answering questions that they may have about the vaccine in hopes that they'll take it. We're seeing a high compliance rate with older people, but there are still people out there who are at great risk who haven't gotten the vaccine. And so they are doing outreach. There's money set aside to do that.
All right. The Republican race to hug Donald Trump the tightest and stiff arm John Kasich the hardest is up now to 2 candidates. This week, recently resigned State Republican Chairwoman Jane Timken announced she wants Rob Portman's seat. She says she's the best candidate to carry Trump's banner.
I will advance the Trump agenda without fear or hesitation, fighting for American manufacturing and Ohio workers, defending the unborn and our Second Amendment, standing up for law enforcement and stronger borders.
Timken joins former State Treasurer Josh Mandel, who announced last week, in addition to showing pictures of themselves with Donald Trump, they also took turns showing pictures of each other with John Kasich. Terry Casey, Josh Mandel has run statewide 4 times. He's won twice. Jane Timken led the Republican Party to great victories over the past few years. Who is the stronger candidate here?
Well, you're assuming those are the only 2.
As of right now, yes. Yeah.
With former Ohio House Speaker Joanne Davidson, and her front door at her office is literally like a revolving door with all the potential candidates dropping by, wanting to chat with her, getting her tips. So my prediction is we're easily going to have 10 or more candidates. There's 2 to 3 to 4 millionaires, some from Cincinnati and Cleveland, looking at it, plus a number of current members of Congress. So again, my prediction is there's easily going to be 10 or more candidates. It could be that 32% of the vote could win it in that crowded of a primary. So the good news is that for reporters, this is like a full employment act. You've got a justification to your bosses why you need to work a lot of overtime, because with all those candidates, all that campaign spending, it's going to be a busy next 14 months.
So Terry, these are the 2, Timken right now and Mandel are the 2 expected sort of ultra pro Trump candidates. No one's going to be anti-Trump on the GOP side, but who is the more establishment Republican who you would say is going to jump into the race at this point? Is it Steve Stivers, a congressman from here in the Columbus area?
Well, there's Dayton congressman that's looking at it. Southeastern Ohio Congressman Johnson has got 4 or 5 million, and he's really panting hard to run, and he's got radio ads on the air now. So there's a whole bunch of people. That's why I think there'll be 10 or more candidates. Maybe only 5 to 8 of them will be serious with millions of dollars in money raised. But it's going to be a busy season, and you're definitely going to need to buy a program in order to keep track of all the candidates and write up the score sheet of who's doing exactly what.
Joe Ingles, Jane Timken it's her first time running, even though she's run the state party to big victories, 2 years ago and this past year. She's going to be a strong candidate, but she doesn't have the money that Josh Mandel has.
Well, the Timken family has money,
yes,
and she has connections. I mean, that's the thing. You look at the party, and the job of the party chair is to make connections, help fundraise, help get things in order. So she's got all those connections. She was just doing them primarily to help the party and someone else. Now she's got those connections that she can go back and get some help there. But if we get into a situation where we have a lot of people running, oh boy, that's going to be really interesting, because I think what we're going to see is a lot of people trying to find their niche so that they can carve out enough to win the primary. And they can't all have the same lines, so it's going to be fun from a reporter standpoint, it's going to be fun to watch those campaigns play out if we have several.
Yeah, they're going to find their niche, Joe. They're also going to find their way down to Mar-a-Lago to try to get Donald Trump's endorsement. Because I think if there's that many candidates, whoever he anoints is going to be the chosen one, literally. Joe Mas, no Democrats have officially announced yet. Again, it is still early, but we're still looking at Amy Acton, the former state health director, Tim Ryan, current congressman from Northeast Ohio.
Well, and last time I mentioned Cordray, everybody said, of course, Cordray. So I don't know, and I haven't heard. I certainly don't have any inside information. I was impressed, by the way, by Terry's analysis of what the Republican side might look like with 10 or more candidates, that 32% could win it, because he accurately described the 2016 Republican primary for president. And if that is then the direction, and if Republicans continue to do what they have so far always done, which is close ranks around that candidate, even if they have to hold their collective noses to do it, then Terry is going to be absolutely correct. But we might see some changes in that. I will tell you that I think that the energy or the impetus behind Democratic candidates appears to have been on the wane. We're going to have to see if maybe we can do a little bit better this time.
All right. Joyce Beatty this week said that she is not going to run for Senate. She's going to run for re-election for her House seat. No surprise there. Anyway, our last topic. Usually by this time in the second year of a new decade, state lawmakers are starting to draw legislative districts. The new decade census numbers guide the process and tell us if we have lost a congressional seat in recent years. But because of the pandemic, the census numbers may not be ready until the end of September. And that's when Ohio's new map drawing system is supposed to be finished. Some lawmakers and advocates want the process to begin now, even without the census numbers. Terry Casey, the Constitution allows for it. Do you see that happening?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns, and I'm also going to predict that there's bound to be lawsuits once the census comes out with their numbers, because there's significant questions of how much of this data is based on actual number versus statistical estimates, which is a close cousin to guesstimates. So there's going to be some questions, because there's states like Ohio and California that are going to lose districts and shrink, and other states like Texas and Florida, they're going to grow. Some people might even want to hold off having that census data be in effect for 2022. So first of all, you're going to have lawsuits, and then you're going to have the mad scrambles. And then here's the teller for a lot of people. If you expect 15 Ohio congressional districts or 99 Ohio House districts to all be compact, equally competitive, keeping every community whole and even and perfect, that's not going to happen, because Ohio is such a complicated state. And you can draw like 99 House districts, the first 10 or 15 that look pretty decent by some people's definition, but then you have little bits and pieces left over, and you got to stick them someplace and make it work in terms of the numbers. So it's a complicated task. When you crunch the time frame with numbers that are going to be debated, you're in for a big challenge.
Joe Mas, how do you see this playing out? This is supposed to be a new system, supposed to make it more compact, as Terry mentioned, even though he's skeptical. We shouldn't see a seahorse district like Jim Jordan has, or the Rorschach test district that Joyce Beatty has right now, that are just crazy drawings. Do you see this happening with the census snag in the process?
Yeah, I see it, and I have it, and we've talked about this before, and I see it as an improvement. And I do agree 100%. Terry and I had an online discussion earlier in the week, and he said, we're going to see lawsuits. And I said, well, that's what attorneys are for. We're supposed to kind of look over the shoulders of what people are doing, or whether they're in compliance with the law. So I do anticipate that happening. I think at the end of the day, we'll have an improvement over what we have. And by the way, mea culpa, Democrats had an opportunity to revise this back in 2010, and we kicked the can down the road. And then fortunately, the voters helped us in 2015 and 2018 in giving us a system that can be worked. And, with people of good faith, I think we're going to have a good system, but it's going to take that.
All right. Time now for our off-the-record parting shots. Some predictions for the weeks to come. Terry's already had a bunch, but Joe Mas, go ahead.
Not a prediction, but looking back a little bit. This week, Edith Espinal, the immigrant mother who was in self-imposed sanctuary at Columbus Mennonite Church since 2017, was allowed to go home to her family by immigration authorities pending review of her Trump-era deportation order. One of the leading clergy sponsoring Edith's sanctuary asked if there had been a change in immigration policy since the election, and he said, like night and day.
All right, Terry Casey.
There'll be no primary this May for Columbus or Franklin County. There'll be a handful of isolated small suburban issues, but basically in Columbus, not enough people filed and qualified to make the ballot. So no primary, either countywide or city of Columbus. So it'll be safe to watch TV this spring. You won't be flooded with all those nasty attack ads.
All right, Joe Ingles.
This week, we saw the announcement of the Columbus Innovation District, and we're seeing statewide a movement to try to get a lot of these businesses and people who've moved out of state to move back in state, or convince people who've never lived here to come back here and bring their business with them. One of the things I'm seeing on social media, though, a lot of people say they don't think Ohio is livable anymore. And when you ask the questions about that, you get some answers about business, but you don't really get answers addressing some of the things that people are talking about as far as livability. So I think that's going to be something to watch.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. We thank our panel. We thank our crew. Check us out online. We're at wosu.org/COTR, where you can watch every episode whenever you want. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.